All right, so we're diving deep into the world of Michael Chapman.
Oh, this is going to be good.
It is. Our listener wants to know what made this guy such a legend in cinematography.
And they sent us some fantastic articles and YouTube clips, yeah.
Absolutely. Tons of stuff. But the big takeaway, I think, is that he wasn't just like a technical whiz with a camera. He was an artist, you know? He understood how to make us feel something just by how the movie looked on screen.
Exactly. It's like people forget cinematography is part of the storytelling. Light, shadow, how the camera moves,
Yeah.
it all adds up.
It's subtle, right? Like,
Right.
you don't always notice it consciously, but it totally affects how you experience the film.
It's directing your emotions, basically.
Whoa, yeah, I like that. Directing your emotions without you even realizing it. Okay, so who is this visual mastermind?
Well, our sources say he was born back in 1935, studied at Columbia University,
Fancy.
right? And then he worked his way up, starting as a camera operator.
So he really paid his dues.
Oh, absolutely. And get this, he was influenced by Gordon Willis.
Wait, the Gordon Willis, the guy who did The Godfather?
The one and only. And you can see that influence, honestly. Willis was all about using darkness, contrast, in a really artistic way.
Which is totally something you see in Chapman's work later on.
Huh. It's fascinating how those early influences can stick with you.
It's like they plant a seed and it grows into something amazing.
Totally. Okay, so we've got this talented guy working his way up in Hollywood, and then there's this pivotal moment. He's working on Jaws in 1975.
Ah, Jaws, classic.
Right. And Spielberg, a young Spielberg at this point, sees something special in Chapman. Boom, suddenly he's director of photography on major films.
It's like that aha moment that changes everything.
Man, I would love to be a fly on the wall on those sets. 70s Hollywood, Spielberg, amazing.
Oh, to time travel. But you know what's even more significant for Chapman's development? His work with Scorsese.
Scorsese, huh? That's a powerhouse duo right there.
Taxi Driver in '76, then Raging Bull 4 years later. Those films are still studied today, you know, like textbooks for visual storytelling. Yeah, they're not just movies, they're like cultural landmarks.
Right.
Okay, so let's break it down. What are some of Chapman's like signature moves? What makes his films look different?
Think bold colors, lots
What
of
is it?
contrast, and he's not afraid of the dark. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, like using darkness as a character almost.
Exactly, especially in Taxi Driver. It creates this gritty realism that just fits the city perfectly.
You can practically feel the grime and the tension just watching it.
It pulls you right in. And then his camera work, it's so dynamic.
Yeah, not just static shots, right?
No way. Like those boxing scenes in Raging Bull, they actually strapped cameras onto the actors to get right in the action.
Whoa, really? Like on the actors?
Yeah. So you're not just watching the fight, you're feeling it.
That's crazy. It must have been a nightmare to film, though.
Probably. But the effect is amazing.
So we've got this gritty style, almost documentary-like, but then he also does The Last Waltz for Scorsese that same year, which is a concert film, totally different vibe.
Ah, see, that's what's so cool about Chapman. He wasn't stuck in one genre.
Wait, so in 1 year, he's doing a gritty boxing movie, a concert film.
And a sci-fi horror remake, Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
No way. Are you serious? This guy never slept.
Apparently not. And then in '86, he works on a film called America with Robert Downey Sr. directing.
Okay, I haven't heard of that one.
It's an independent experimental drama, totally different for the big Hollywood stuff.
Wow, that's range right there. Just goes to show he was always up for trying new things.
Absolutely. And just imagine being on set with this guy, seeing his process.
It must have been incredible to see how he brought his vision to life.
Right. And the results speak for themselves. 2 Oscar nominations.
Oh, wow. For which films?
Raging Bull, of course. And then later on, The Fugitive in '93.
The Fugitive, talk about two completely different films.
I know, right? It shows how versatile he was. And his final film, Terabithia in 2007, it got praise for using minimal CGI, which feels very fitting for Chapman, you know?
Yeah, like he was dedicated to doing things practically, for real.
Exactly. He had a vision, and he stuck to it.
So we've got this incredible career, all these different styles. But why should our listener care about this guy? What's the takeaway here?
Well, his work is still relevant today. The way he used the camera, the techniques he pioneered, it's all still being used by filmmakers today.
So he wasn't just doing his own thing, he was influencing an entire generation of filmmakers?
Totally. He changed how we see stories, even if we don't realize it.
So next time you're watching a movie or a TV show, pay attention to how it's shot. You might just see a little bit of Michael Chapman shining through.
And that's why understanding his work is so important, you know? He's not just history, he's a living legacy.
That's a great way to put it, and I think this is a perfect point to take a break. But don't go anywhere because next we're going to dive into the specifics of his most iconic films. We're going to break down those scenes, analyze those techniques, and really get a feel for what made his work so special.
I can't wait.
Me neither. We'll be right back after a quick break.
Okay, so let's get back into it. We were talking about Chapman's signature style.
And how he could make you feel something just by the way he shot a scene.
Right. And those boxing scenes in Raging Bull, man, there's something else.
They really are. You feel like you're right there in the ring getting punched in the face.
How did they even do that back then? It was 1980, right? No fancy CGI.
Yeah, it wasn't like today where they can just like create anything digitally.
Exactly. But they found a way, and it's actually pretty ingenious.
Lay it on me. What did they do?
So they built these, like, harness-like platforms
Platforms for what?
to mount cameras. But get this.
Yeah.
They mounted them onto the actors.
Wait, are you serious? The cameras were strapped to the actors.
They literally put the cameras right there on their bodies.
That's crazy. What was the effect of that? Why do that?
It was about capturing the boxer's POV.
Yeah.
You know, not just watching the fight from the outside.
Oh, I get it. So you're seeing it through their eyes, literally.
Yeah. The chaotic movement, the disorientation.
Yeah.
You feel it because the camera's right there with the boxer.
Wow, that's amazing. I never would have thought of that.
It was groundbreaking.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just that. They also used slow motion, fast motion, all sorts of tricks.
The sources mention that, yeah. Were those used in the boxing scenes too?
Big time. Slow motion to emphasize the impact of the punches, you know.
Oof. Yeah, you can practically feel the pain just watching it.
And then fast motion to show the frenzy of the fight, the speed and chaos.
It's like a visual roller coaster. I bet the editing played a huge role in making that work.
Oh, absolutely. The editing's crucial in those scenes. And then, don't forget, it's all in black and white.
Right. Which makes it even more, I don't know, raw and intense.
Yeah, like a documentary almost. Like you're watching real footage of these brutal fights.
It's wild how all these little choices come together to create this huge impact, you know?
It's a testament to Chapman's vision. He understood how every detail mattered.
Speaking of details, I read that they shot some of those fight scenes in a real boxing gym in New York.
Oh, yeah. I think it was in the Bronx, if I remember right.
That makes sense. It adds a level of authenticity you just can't fake.
You can practically smell the sweat, right? Hear the crowd roaring.
Totally. Okay, so we've got this gritty realism in Raging Bull, but then there's Taxi Driver, another iconic Chapman film. How does his style translate to that one?
Well, Taxi Driver is definitely gritty too, but it's also got this, like, unsettling atmosphere.
Yeah, you really feel Travis Bickle's isolation, his disconnect from the world.
And Chapman's right there with him, capturing that feeling. Those night scenes in Times Square with the neon lights and the shadows.
Oh yeah, those are iconic. It's like the city's a character itself, almost.
Totally. And the sources talk about how Chapman pushed the boundaries with darkness and contrast in this film.
Yeah, it's not just about making things look pretty, right?
No way. The darkness is part of the story. It reflects Travis's mental state.
So it's not just aesthetic, it's psychological too.
Exactly. And then there's that famous slow motion shot in the climax, the bloodbath scene.
Oh man, that scene is intense, but it's also like strangely beautiful the way it's shot.
The slow motion, the lighting, the music. It's horrifying but mesmerizing at the same time.
It's one of those scenes that sticks with you.
And the music. Speaking of which, I think we should talk about how important sound and music are in Chapman's film.
It's not just about what you see, right? It's the whole package.
Totally. The visuals work together with the sound and music to create a complete sensory experience.
It's like a symphony for your eyes and ears.
Exactly. And speaking of symphonies, let's talk about The Last Waltz.
Okay, so now we're going from gritty realism to a concert film.
Yeah. A celebration of music and friendship. And Chapman nails it.
What struck you about his approach in The Last Waltz?
The scope, for one. They used tons of cameras to capture every angle of the performance.
And it was all filmed live, right? No studio trickery.
Yep. Scorsese was all about capturing that live energy, that raw feeling.
And Chapman's lighting is amazing in this film. It's so warm and inviting.
Right. It makes you feel like you're right there in the room with the band.
It's incredible how he can create such different moods with lighting, you know?
It's masterful. And even though it's a huge concert, there are moments where it feels super intimate, like you're in a small club.
I remember those close-ups on Robbie Robertson's hands as he's playing guitar.
Oh, those are stunning.
Oh.
And then those wide shots of the audience, everyone singing along.
It's like you can feel the collective joy in the room.
And Chapman captures it all. He's not just documenting the concert, he's capturing the soul of it.
That's a great way to put it. So we've got Raging Bull, Taxi Driver, The Last Waltz, three very different films, all showcasing different aspects of Chapman's talent.
It's amazing how he can jump between genres and always find the right visual language, you
It's
know?
like he's a chameleon, blending into each world, finding its essence.
That's a great analogy. And it speaks to his collaboration, you know? He wasn't just doing his own thing. He was working with the director, the actors.
It was a team effort, but his vision was always there.
Absolutely. And we can't forget America, that indie film with Robert Downey Sr.
Right, we haven't talked about that one as much. What makes it stand out?
Well, it's much smaller in scale, more experimental, but Chapman brings the same artistry to it.
It's like he's saying, hey, great cinematography doesn't need a huge budget or explosions.
Exactly. It's about the story, the emotion, and his passion for filmmaking shines through no matter what kind of film he's working on.
So we've seen the grit, the energy, the intimacy. What else should we keep in mind about Chapman's work?
I think the big takeaway is that it's not just about technical skill. It's about emotion, mood, creating a world you believe in.
It's about using the camera to tell a story that goes beyond words.
Exactly. And that's why his legacy is so strong. He influenced so many filmmakers who came after him.
So the next time you're watching a movie, pay attention to how it looks. You might just see Chapman's influence there.
And that's why it's important to study his work. He's not just history, he's a living legacy.
Perfect way to put it. All right, well, I think we're ready for our final thoughts on Michael Chapman. Stay tuned. And we're back, wrapping up our Michael Chapman deep dive.
Man, what a journey. From his early days to those iconic films, he really left his mark.
He did. You know, one thing that keeps coming back to me is how his work goes beyond just like technical skill. He understood the power of visuals to tell a story.
Oh, absolutely. To evoke emotions, to create entire worlds on screens.
It's like he was a director in his own right, shaping the performances without ever saying a word.
It makes you wonder, right? How did the actors respond to working with him? Did they feel that visual influence?
I bet they did. Think about Robert De Niro in Taxi
I
Driver.
bet they did. Think about Robert De Niro in Taxi Driver.
Oh man, classic De Niro.
The isolation, the simmering rage. It's all amplified by how Chapman frames him in those shadows, you know?
It's like the cinematography becomes a visual representation of Travis Bickle's mental state.
Whoa, yeah, you're right. It's not just about lighting the scene, it's about getting inside the character's head.
Exactly. And then you have The Last Waltz. Totally different vibe. Yeah, much more celebratory, right?
Totally. And the warm lighting reflects that. It captures the camaraderie of the band, the joy to the music.
It's amazing how he could switch gears like that, you know?
Yeah.
From gritty realism to a concert shell.
And do it all so well. Don't forget, we talked about America, too, that indie film with Robert Downey Sr.
Right, right. Shows he wasn't just chasing those big Hollywood productions.
He was a true artist,
Yeah.
drawn to stories no matter the scale.
So as we wrap up, what's the one big thing you want our listener to remember about Michael Chapman? What's the key takeaway?
That's a tough one. But I think it's this. He was more than just a cinematographer. He was a visual storyteller.
Ooh, I like that.
He understood that how a film looks can be as important as the dialogue or the plot.
So it's not just pointing the camera and shooting, it's about using those visuals to tell a story.
Exactly. He used light, shadow, composition, camera movement, all of it to draw the audience in, to make them feel something.
And his work, it still resonates with us today, you know?
Absolutely. Think about all the films and TV shows that use those gritty, realistic visuals he pioneered. His influence is everywhere.
So listener, next time you're watching a movie, pay attention to the cinematography. You might just be seeing a little bit of Michael Chapman's magic at work.
And that's why it's so important to understand his legacy. You know, he wasn't just a guy who shot films. He changed how we see stories.
Beautifully said. And on that note, I think we've reached the end of our Michael Chapman deep dive. We hope you've enjoyed this journey and learned something new about this incredible artist.
Go watch some of his films. Taxi Driver, Raging Bull, The Last Waltz, even The Fugitive. See if you can spot those Chapman touches.
Yeah, pay attention to how those visuals make you feel, how the lighting creates atmosphere, how the camera pulls you into the story, because that's the true magic of Michael Chapman. He didn't just show us stories, he made us experience them.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Well, that's it for this deep dive. Thanks for listening, everyone, and until next time.